Have you ever watched Bojack Horseman and imagined what it would be like if the main character was actually two 30-year-old female birds? Well, imagine no longer because the show Tuca Bertie is airing on Netflix on May 3rd. If you are watching this video before May 3rd, you may be wondering how I'm reviewing this. For those who haven't seen any of my reviews before, I got the opportunity to watch the first season of the show early to give you my thoughts about it. I'm Hailey from Cartooniverse, and here's my review of Tuca and Bertie. This show follows the lives of two bird women, Tuca and Bertie, as they try and live their lives as young women in a modern city. As you can see, just like Bojack, there are characters that are basically just humans with animal heads, but this time around there are even living plants, and humans are extremely rare to see. In fact, most characters are birds, which I suppose does make some sense because this takes place in Bird City after all. I was quite intrigued by the show when I first heard about it for a few reasons. First off, from the style alone, it is very reminiscent of Bojack Horseman, which is no surprise because this show was created by Bojack Horseman's producer and art director, Lisa Hanawalt. And because of this, that means there is a lot of potential for the show to become quite deep and realistic despite how it looks. And that brings me to my second point. There are almost no Western animated shows created by women for adult women, meaning that this show is very special. I honestly couldn't think of any, and I've been watching a ton of cartoons over the past few years. I've heard that Daria counts, but besides that, nobody I knew could think of any others, although it appears two more are coming to Freeform in the near future, and there may be a few more soon after, so there's hope. But regardless, from what I could tell, this is the first cartoon of its kind in a long time. But just because a female creator makes it doesn't mean I'll like it, and I've always had issues with comedy-based adult cartoons. Yet I do like Bojack despite how crude it can be. So, how does Tuca and Bertie fare? Well, let me just say it's very much an adult cartoon, with all the staples of what you'd expect in a comedy that is aimed for an adult audience. Characters get naked a lot, especially Tuca, and you really just have to accept that the world they live in is really weird. And as I said before, this type of show has always been a tough watch for me. Adult humor in general is not my cup of tea, but I was very interested in seeing what the show was about, so I knew I needed to check it out. Thankfully, I did see a lot of myself in Bertie, which made the show pretty interesting right from the start. She is shy, moving up in her career, and is in a steady relationship. Well, I can't relate to all those things, but she is certainly a character that I could see myself being friends with, even if she is a bit of a pushover. A lot of her story focuses on her juggling her full-time job, her new part-time job at a bakery with an apparently handsome penguin, and maintaining her relationships with her boyfriend Speckle and her best friend Tuca. Tuca, on the other hand, is almost the opposite. She is wild, loud, and impulsive. There's also the recurring theme of her being unable to accept change, which I understand, but when she becomes a burden on Bertie, it becomes annoying. The show describes her as being relatable, but I'm not sure how much I agree with that. And I had a lot of trouble liking her, especially when she was by herself and not kept in check by Bertie. Her story for the season centers around her love life, finding a job, and confronting her past. Speaking of a character's past, a great thing about a show like this is that each character evolves pretty quickly as we learn more about them. By the end of the season, I had a much bigger appreciation for Tuca for all that she had been through, but her unstructured and risky lifestyle puts me off from truly liking her. Yet as we should come to expect from this type of show, even the characters that seem relatively put together make mistakes. If you are expecting Bertie to always be sweet and pure, you'll be quite surprised. But with these two come the rest of the cast, a few of which have their personality centered around being pretty terrible to women. That means that you'll see characters that exist almost solely to showcase harassment in the workplace, harassment outside the workplace, the struggle of being listened to as a female, body positivity, and a few other hot topics.
That's the alarm that sounds when no women have spoken out loud for 3 minutes.
And while, yes, all these things are huge issues for women all around the world, many of these characters were able to be stopped by just calling them out. I don't think it's that simple in real life, and in the end, all it does is just make it seem like some of these problems have an easy solution. This of course could just be the beginning, and things could be expanded on in season 2. This will definitely be a huge turnoff for some viewers, but even from the marketing of the show, it is clear that it will get into stuff like this, so it shouldn't be a huge surprise. But one aspect of this show that I really enjoyed was just how zany it could be. Besides the fact that even the plants have regular human anatomy, I love seeing all the different species showcased. There are so many different types of birds, and it was really cool to see how many were represented. Additionally, the world these two live in has crazy things like huge animals that serve as trains, or dogs owning more animal-looking dogs as pets. The show also loves to play around with its transitions between scenes, and occasionally it will utilize other art styles to show what characters are thinking. All this helps to make the show distinct, and I like the fun vibe it goes for most of the time. But as I mentioned before, this show can get serious. And when I say serious, I mean that we learn things about certain characters that completely change how we think about them. And that is one of my favorite aspects about this show. Looks are very deceiving, even if it takes most of the season to get to that point. But would I watch the show if I wasn't dedicated to watching almost every Netflix cartoon? Probably not. It sexualizes almost everything, sometimes the characters do things I find completely illogical, and it can just get plain weird, which makes me hesitant to watch. But for others that like something a bit cruder and slice of life, I would recommend it to you, especially if you are a woman. I feel like it's very important to have women's voices heard, and that means there should be female showrunners of adult cartoons, even if not all the shows they make are to my liking. I know for a fact that there are so many women that enjoy cartoons. Voltron fandom. So, the more companies that learn this, the less often we'll get disappointed everything we end up liking was actually made for young boys. Not that there's anything wrong with cartoons made for children. Far from it, because they avoid many of the pitfalls adult animation has. But I mean to say that there's a big enough audience for shows to be made for more than just children and men. And Tuca Bertie is an example of this, even if it's still going for the more mainstream Netflix audience. I can't personally say how enjoyable the show will be for men to watch, especially when many of the characters that are shown in the wrong are male. But it's not completely one-sided, and there are some great male characters as well as terrible female characters. I would say the show is more something to watch if you don't really have anything else on Netflix to binge. But the show will be out really soon, just a few days after this review is released, and I'm interested in seeing what others thought about it. Let me know in the comments section your thoughts. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe so I can continue to do video reviews. Also make sure to check out my other Netflix show reviews. For those that want more stories centered around female characters, feel free to check out my reviews of She-Ra Season 2 and Carmen Sandiego Season 1. I've also reviewed shows like Castlevania and The Dragon Prince, which you can find in my review playlist. Thank you for watching and have an animated day.